Hey guys, what's going on? It's me, Jay, here to do another video, a short little video on Black Panther Part 2, the Wakanda Forever story. Um, of course, Black Panther Part 2 is the sequel to 2018's Black Panther, starring, well, this one is starring Lolita Wright and, uh, of course, Danae Guerrera, Lupita Nyong'o, written by Ryan Coogler. Hey, Lisa, what's going on? Written by Ryan Coogler, and you know, it's basically the sequel to the 2018 version. What did I think of it? Well, I went to see it yesterday, and I thought it was a great movie, but there were a lot of hidden messages that people didn't really pick up on. That I picked up on cryptic messaging um, in it. For example, the new foe, the new bad guy, the new villain, his name is Namor, and he is a part of the Telokani uh, civilization. Um, that they also have vibranium. They have the mineral that the Wakandans have, and they were able to create themselves an underwater civilization similar to that, but even better, more advanced than the Wakandans have on land. And they're even more because Wakanda was isolated and kept a secret, but um, the Telokan is underwater. So, of course, the people knew the Wakandans existed, but they didn't know how advanced Wakanda was. But with Telokan, they don't even know that these people exist. How the story starts out is, of course, Chadwick Boseman passed away in 2020 in real life of colon cancer. So he was, of course, he was the Black Panther in the 2018 version. But it starts off with his funeral. You know, everybody in Wakanda is mourning him. They're all in white. They have his casket, a picture of him, his insignia, his logo, and the sister Shuri, she loses it because when it first starts off, she's trying to save him. She's in her lab. Remember the lab from the first one? She's in the lab trying to get his blood levels right, and the griot, her machine, says that his blood levels is into that. And then Ramonda, played by Angela Bassett, comes in and she tells him, "No, the brother, your brother is lost." And she just breaking down crying, and she has to, all of her advanced technology, she was not able to save her brother from death. All her medical advancements, all her hyper tech technology inspired by vibranium, even the vibranium wasn't able to save her brother. So they have the funeral for him. She drapes herself over his casket. She's breaking down crying, and they bury him. The whole of Wakanda is in mourning because not only is he the king, not only he's also, of course, he's the Black Panther. He's the protector of Wakanda. Something happens to a Wakandan overseas in another country, he was the one tasked. The Black Panther, according to the tradition of the Wakandans, as we know from the first one, was the one tasked with the responsibility of protecting Wakandans and all Wakandans both home and abroad. But now this position is no longer filled because Killmonger destroyed the facility, the heart-shaped oval, to create um, black to create a new Black Panther. And the mother wants Shuri to continue this tradition. She wants the tradition to go on, but Shuri doesn't, because Shuri has a different outlook than the other Wakandans. Even in the first one, when they had T'Challa's um, ceremony, his coronation ceremony, where he had to fight the other guy, and they were all around, Shuri was not into that, because Shuri came up at a time when they already had vibranium. They were already an advanced society, so a lot of the traditions that the Wakandans have, she doesn't particularly care for it. And a lot of other people, the older Wakandans, especially the Jabari that they live in the mountains, they consider her to be a little bit disrespectful and a little bit discarding of their cultural traditions, their various cultural traditions. You know what I mean? So she's telling Ramonda she doesn't want to continue um, putting the research into the heart-shaped oval, or to resurrect the Black Panther suit. She wants T'Challa to be the last Black Panther. So in the funeral, the coolest scene and the funeral part is when they beam the casket up after his death. They beam him into a ship, and then they bury him. So after that, Ramunda goes to the United Nations, and the French and the American people are wanting to get their hands on vibranium. Because they know that if they got their hands on the vibranium, they would be even more ruthless. They wouldn't be as benevolent as the Wakandans. But Raimunda's like, no, I'm not worried about what vibranium would do to people. I'm worried about what you would do to people if you were to get your hands on this vibranium. You're the colonizers. You would use it to wreak havoc around the world. And the American United Nations ambassador and the French United Nations ambassador, they look like they got egg on their face, because they know they were caught. They know they were caught sending envoys to various parts of the world trying to uncover other places in the globe where that meteor that caused Wakanda to have vibranium hit. You know what I mean? They're trying to find another source, just like in our real world. Take oil, for example. Okay, the Middle East is not going to do business when it comes to oil deposits. So they'll find another place that has oil, and they'll begin to drill and exploit um, that civilization. You know, so they're trying to find other places around the world that have vibranium. So they send out these spies under um, across oceans to see, well, where did they have the vibranium. So they uncover. That's when they uncover Telokan, this underwater civilization, and these blue people that Lisa and I we saw it together, and Lisa and I immediately uh, we thought of Avatar, because you look at these Neymar, this Neymar civilization, this Neymar guy. First thing you're gonna think is a cross between Avatar thank you, Lisa. A cross between Avatar and um, Aquaman, Jason Momoa, like a less athletic version of Jason Momoa. And that's what Lisa automatically said. And I said too, this is the Avatar people, because these people are blue. They're blue skinned. They're not blue skinned when they're under the water, but when they come out of the water, they're blue skinned, because rather than um because of their exposure to vibranium, rather than taking in oxygen above air in the surface level like we do, they take oxygen below the water. So they absorb the color of the water. Basically, they are basically water people, and they are so advanced with their civilization that they're able to um, to manipulate the mentality of the people trying to exploit them, the United States government, to throw themselves off of the ship. You know, that's how they defeat them. But the other governments, like this United States and the other countries, they don't know these people even exist. Like I said, these people are, in a lot of ways, they are more in the they have the advantage over the Wakandans because yes, the Wakandans, um, the existence of vibranium was kept hidden, but people knew Wakanda existed. So basically, when the outside world comes in contact with this civilization, this guy Namor feels threatened. So um, there's a scene where Raimonda is mourning, um, is trying to tell Shuri to get over the death of her brother, and she takes her out to the beach, and they're talking. You know, Raimonda's talking about how she herself got over it, and that's when they see Namor, and Namor explains to them that his civilization is in danger as well. So Shuri, being as cosmopolitan as she is, she becomes interested in Namor. The other people, the other Wakandans, they feel threatened because they don't really know what, just like other countries, they don't really know what these guys are capable of. Plus, because other people don't know who they are, the um, the other countries, the other societies are blaming the Wakandans. Of course, they want any excuse, any pretext to put the blame uh, to put the blame on the Wakandans so they could invade Wakanda. And take it over and take the vibranium. Oh, the Wakandans are dangerous to other countries, other societies. Let's invade them. Let's take them over. That's what they really want to do. So, if this gets blamed on the Wakandans, that could be the end of Wakanda as we know it. Especially with no Black Panther, nobody to protect them. So, Um, Shuri goes down to the underwater kingdom. She puts in the suit, and she is talking to Namor. And Namor is explaining his how he got his name of Namor of when he was a little kid in the 16th century when the Spaniards first came to the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico. How they enslaved his mother. Of course, we know from actual real history the encomienda system and what the Spaniards um, did in 1519 when they invaded Mexico. And basically, um, his mom had saw her entire village wiped out of smallpox, and she wanted to save that little semblance of Mayan indigenous civilization. So uh, when she discovered the vibranium, the medicine man convinced her, even though she was against it because she was pregnant at this time with Neymar, she was against it, but she took the vibranium, and a lot of the other villagers took the vibranium, and they were able to save their civilization by going underwater. Later on, Neymar, when his mother gets sick, she requests that she be buried in the surface on the surface land in her village. So he has to go up, and that's when he sees the Spaniards doing what they were doing to the indigenous people. And he comes back later on and he seeks revenge. And his name, Neymar, is from the Spanish phrase "no sin amor," means he doesn't have no love in his heart. He has pure hatred in his heart because of against the Europeans because of what he went through. We see this. This is a trope not only in history with like the Malcolm X mentality versus the Martin Luther King mentality. The Wakandans have a Martin Luther King mentality. They don't want to seek revenge. They just want to, again, just like with the clash between Killmonger and T'Challa in the first movie, they just want to be left alone and stuff, and live their lives. But Neymar, he's different. He has the Malcolm X, in a sense, mentality, or uh, the Magneto mentality from X Men, right? Or the one ape in Planet of the Apes, that wants to destroy all of humanity because of what he went through, right? He wants to exact revenge on humanity, the surface world. And he basically tells Shuri, listen, the only thing, I'll make an alliance with Wakanda, but if you stand in my way and you try to protect other surface world countries, you know, Wakanda can get blown up too because we have more vibranium than Wakanda. We're far more advanced than Wakanda, and we can survive underwater, and Wakanda can't. You know what I mean? So basically, Wakanda, that they met their match in Telokan. Telokan is far more advanced than them. So if they go head to head, Wakanda be destroyed just like any other civilization. And Shuri is not with that. Shuri is with, trying to get along with other nations. They want to be left alone, but they want to get along with other people. And he's not. He's like, okay, yeah, you don't want a treaty, then fuck it. You're not with me, you're against me. And there's a scene where he unleashes his water bombs and they completely wipe out all of Wakanda. Wakanda is completely destroyed. They come to the surface area and these water people wipe out all of Wakanda, including, in this scene, Lisa missed, but including Raymonda, Angela Bassett's character, who was the queen of that nation, um, is wiped out, and she dies in the flood. And it's a really emotional scene. Of course, Danae Guerrera is crying like the Viola Davis type cry, and she's breaking down, and Shuri is breaking down, and basically Raymunda drowns because Namor hits her with one of the water bombs, and she just drowns. But at this point, too, Raymunda doesn't care. There's a part where Shuri is missing because when they were underwater, they found this contraption, and the Wakandans, Okoye and Shuri, go to Boston where they meet this girl from Chicago. I knew that because she had a Chicago flag in her dorm room, and she's basically a mathematical genius. She makes her money doing homework for other people at MIT, um, and she built this machine, and they want to track her down to basically recruit her for in the Wakandan civilization. Her name is Riri Williams, and during that time, uh, that's when Neymar captures um, Shuri. And during this time, when Okoye comes back to Wakanda, she has a conversation with Raymunda, where Raymunda is the scene in the trailer we talked about in the trailer review. Raymunda says, you know, my whole family is gone. T'Challa is gone. T'Challa's father, who died in that explosion, is gone. Um, and now she thinks Shuri might be gone. So I don't have a reason to live anymore. Shuri does come back eventually with Riri, but she's still very depressed about what's going on. So when Neymar throws the water bomb and Neymar kills her, it's almost like she's martyred in a sense. She doesn't really care. She's like, oh, well, my whole world is come crashing down on me anyway. But now Shuri has suffered two deaths, three really big if you count her dad. You know what I mean? And she has no family left. And then Jabari and her have a conversation in which Jabari says to her, um, she says, "You really want to pass the mantle on to me, a young girl who, doesn't care about tradition. Keep in mind, Jabari and all the other, the Jabari and all the other elders, they never really, saw eye to eye with her anyway. But what he says is that at this point, with all you've gone through, you're no longer a child. You're an adult because um, you've experienced so much adult adult experiences. You go through so much tragedy, you know." And she, in honor of her mother, she resumes the research of the heart shaped oval, and she rebuilds the Black Panther suit, and she becomes the Black Panther. And long story short, she defeats Namor. She figures out a way to defeat him, and the way to defeat him is the use of heat. He can survive in water, and he can survive somewhat in land, but he can't survive in heat. And she takes him out to the desert and she burns him. And the part where he dies, he says what he says in his language, and she says Wakanda forever, and she burns him out with fire. And she doesn't kill him because he yields to her, and they make a peace treaty, and she saves the day. She's the Black Panther. And during this time, although all this is going on, Lupita Nyong'o is a teacher in Haiti, and uh, at a kid's school, and they have to bring her back to Wakanda, and she explains why she left after T'Challa's death and why she didn't come to the funeral. And she performs the ritual that takes um, Shuri to the ancestral plane, where she meets with Michael B. Jordan. It's a surprise twist ending, and then at the very end, after it's all over, and Shuri goes to Haiti, and she engages in the ritual of burning the white mourning clothes. Hold on, the white mourning clothes. There is something that happens. I'm not gonna say it, Lisa, but what I am gonna say is don't when you see the Black Panther logo appear, don't leave the theater. I was I had turned my chair on. I was ready to leave the theater, and Lisa was like, "We're not leaving until the lights come up." And smart thing, Lisa said that because there's something that happens that you're gonna want to see and gonna want to know about, and basically it changes the complexion of the whole story. It changes the route of the whole story, and that's all I'm gonna say about that. But overall, it was a pretty good movie, and I give it an 8 out of 10. There, I ain't gonna front. There are some parts, especially in a lot of the dialogue, that compared to the first one, drag because if if you're looking for an action-packed movie that has great fight scenes and what have you on the edge of your seat like the first one, you're not gonna get that with this. A lot of this is heavy on the dialogue, it's heavy on the talking parts, it's heavy on exploring the underwater civilization um, of the Tolokani, explaining Namor's history and why he has the animosity he has. And it focuses heavily on the death of Chadwick Boseman and the death of Chadwick Boseman's character. It's a very sad movie in that way. It's more sad and more somber than the original, which is the original was just a fantasy action packed movie. Didn't really have any serious consequences. Had a lot of subtext, just like uh, just like this one, but didn't have uh, the sadness to it. This was uh, I feel like a change, a pivot. When I was coming out, uh, Lisa and I briefly spoke to one of the ushers at the theater, and I questioned what was the original storyline had Chadwick Boseman not died. Because if Chadwick Boseman doesn't die in real life, uh, yeah, if Chadwick Boseman doesn't die in real life, then the entire movie complexion of the movie changes. Like half or one third or the vast majority of the movie is not what it becomes if he doesn't die. And what Lisa is saying is there is another scene where Okoye is talking with Lupita Nyong'o's character, and they're talking about something that happened in Infinity War that Lisa and I didn't see, and we're like, well, when did that happen? Uh, why was she exiled? Why did she go to Haiti? These type of movies are not the type of movies that you can just pick up watching. Okay, I just watch one, and it's a self-contained story. Beginning, middle, end. You have to watch all of them in succession because if you don't, you'll be lost as to what some of these characters reference in their dialogue, and you're like, wait a minute, it's like you're speaking another language. I have no idea what you're even talking about. Can you start at point A for me and break it down? Now, I understand that, we were already complaining there was too much dialogue and too much exposition, too much talking. And if they would have went into every little minute detail, it would have been more talking, it would have been more boring and less action. I get that. You know what I mean? They can't explain every little detail. They take it for granted that everyone has seen these types of movies and everyone, kind of knows already what is going on. They don't need it explained to them because they're already at an advanced level. It's like taking advanced Spanish. You know what I mean? We're not going to go back and explain to you what the is or what a is or you know why we change certain stuff at the end of words because you should already know that. So that's kind of what this movie does. It takes it for granted that you already watched the other Marvel movies and that you watched part one and that you understand the world they're living in and you don't need it explained to you. But unfortunately, some people like Lisa and I only just watch Black Panther 1 and we're not into the world. We're not into um, what's going on. So if anybody is uh, a Marvel aficionado and into that sort of Avengers and they've watched every single one, leave it in the comment section what's going on, what happened to T'Challa, why did he pass away within the storyline, what was what was the cause of his death, what is the heart-shaped herb, a lot of this mythology and a lot of this lore that Lisa and I don't know. So leave it in the comment section, anything we left out. This is one of those videos, you guys, where Lisa and I need your help because we don't know. You know what I mean? And if we tried to look it up, we'd be looking it up for days and we still wouldn't understand. You know what I mean? So this is um one of those videos where we have to, we need your help because we don't understand it, we don't know. We need somebody with more knowledge on this particular subject to break it down for us. You know what I mean? So leave it in the comment section. What did he die of? You, you know, what did he die of? What is the heart shaped herb? Why was Shuri so against getting it? All this stuff that they didn't explain in this movie or in the last one. You know what I mean? Because we have no clue. We have really no clue, you guys, at all. you know, usually I will be an expert on something, and I will correct Lisa on it, or Lisa will know something about a particular subject and she'll correct me on it. But in this case, you guys, we're both lost, when it comes to this. So leave it in the comments section and explain, basically, you don't have to go into every minute detail, but just explain to us basically how he died and what is the herb that they're referencing, the heart shaped herb. You know what I mean? Uh, that's what basically we want to know. What did I think about the new civilization introduced? Now, this was interesting, and this is a point where Lisa and I disagreed. You know what I mean? Where I saw something, I saw a commentary, a social and political commentary that Lisa didn't see, and I picked up on it. And when I pointed it out to her, she didn't agree with it either. She was like, you know, nah, I don't see that. And that's with the Telekani civilization. The Telekani civilization, like we said, is an underwater civilization, and they're Mayans, but the actors, the guy that plays it, is Mexican American, and he is Hispanic, and they're all Hispanic actors. So it's basically when I did the original Black Panther, I said that Wakanda is a civilization that Africa would be like if it was never colonized by the Europeans, the West. Well, this civilization, this underwater civilization, is exactly what ancient Mexico or Central America or the Incas in Peru or even the Tainos in the Caribbean would be like if it was never colonized. Basically any Hispanic nation, if they were never colonized by the Europeans. So basically, this civilization is a stand-in for um, the Hispanic and Latino demographic, which is during the first Black Panther movie. You remember Gina Rodriguez from Jane the Virgin, the TV show. I think it was on CW, whatever. And then she later got in trouble for using the N word in her TikTok post of Ready or Not. She complained that there was no Latino representation in the original Black Panther. Well, hello, bitch. It's Black Panther. So there was never meant to be any Latino representation. People complained the same shit about Empire. When it was popular on Fox, they said, well, Latinos are a crucial part of hip hop. Why are they not in this hip hop drama series? So, but Hollywood fixed this. Hollywood created this civilization for not them, us. You know, being a Hispanic uh, person, us, and the people that were complaining. Me, I didn't care because I'm like, we have we have Apocalypto, that Mel Gibson movie and shit. So we have stuff like that, you know, already. You know what I mean? But they created this, and but I feel like the producers kind of didn't want to do it, and they kind of sneak dissed the Mayan people, the underwater civilization. As we know, the popular slur against Mexicans, especially, is the slur of wetback. The accusation that Mexicans and other Central Americans are swimming over here to the United States and they're coming out of the water. Now, Lisa said she didn't see that. That wasn't the intention, but that was what I saw. That it was kind of dissing them, kind of saying that they're water people. It's kind of the same thing that during Star Wars, people talk about the Sand People, and then they look like Arabs, and then people are saying, "Well, of course, well, duh, they are the member represent Arabs and Bedouin people specifically, because look, they're surrounded by sand." So calling these people the Water People was kind of like sneak dissing them and calling them wetbacks, right? And then I felt like it was doubly racist when they flooded Wakanda, and it made it like the Wakandans couldn't swim because of the common anti-black stereotype that black people can't swim. You know what I mean? So I'm like, okay, now they're getting at Hispanic people by saying they're wetbacks, and and they're kind of sneak dissing black people too because they're saying that they're um, they can't swim. So the old Paul Mooney joke. Well, what makes a Dominican? What's the difference between Dominicans, Cubans, and Puerto Ricans and regular black people? Rest in peace, Paul Mooney. Is that they're N words that can swim? So the whole swimming thing, the association with water, and the whole water thing, the wetbacks and all that, is kind of a sneak diss I felt at the Latino population, and the fact that they're flooding communities. And I felt like it was a lot of symbolism between if you take water and you replace it with say drugs and other destructive things within the inner city. It's kind of a flooding in a sense of negativity that these newer immigrants, these newer Latino immigrants in our real life world are bringing uh, to America. Kind of like feeding into the headlines, feeding into a kind of pro-Trump mantra that Hispanic people they're bringing drugs, they're rapists. Well, they don't know anything about raping, whatever, but they're bringing drugs, all this kind of shit. You know what I mean? So I don't know. The producers kind of sneak this in there. Call them the white colonizers. I mean, yeah, Lisa, some people took offense to that. But at the same time, you know, with white privilege, there's nothing really that you could say to a white person that would really get them offended, really. I mean, even calling them crackers or whatever is not um, that offensive. You know what I mean? Because they already have white privilege. So some people did get offended by that. But, you know, it wasn't as bad as this. And I do feel like the producers will receive some kind of backlash from this because they gave the Hispanic people representation, but at the same time they didn't. They presented the Hispanics or the Latino or the indigenous population in this movie as bad guys. They presented them uh, as people that um, come to a society and they only bring bad things. They only bring destruction. And in our sensitive world that we live in 2022, that's going to be interpreted as Lisa says they brought all the racist stuff for each race. That's going to be interpreted as something bad. Me as a Hispanic, I didn't take it as that. I didn't. Well, I took it as the kind of symbolism of that, but I didn't take offense to it. Really, it's like whatever. It's better than every other Hispanic representation that we've had in movies, and we talked about this in the fatherhood review, the Kevin Hart video. Every other Hispanic representation in movies that is like a drug dealer, Scarface, or a gang member, Blood In, Blood Out, West Side Story, American Me, or you know, old westerns like their Mexican banditos. It's better than other other depictions of Hispanic people in popular movies. It's way better because at least it shows some semblance of pre-Columbian Hispanic culture, you know, in at least some sort of way. Like his name in the movie, his real name, not Neymar, is the Serpent King, which is an ancient Aztec deity, Quetzalcoatl, in the Aztec, ancient Mexican, or Mexica pantheon. You know what I mean? So it is something that is real, and a lot of, especially Incans too, a lot of the sun worship, which they talk about. He builds his own sun, sun, in underwater. You know, so it does talk about some of the ancient pre-Columbian history. Uh, Lupita Nyong'o in the movie is the one who speaks. Of course, Lupita Nyong'o, um, of Kenyan descent, born in Mexico to Kenyan parents. So she speaks Spanish. She speaks fluently Spanish, and she's the one that goes down there as an envoy from Wakanda to their civilization when they're trying to make peace in the beginning. But later on, that comes in handy as they try to make peace. So her her real life familiarity with Spanish is what uh, she was able to bring that side of her out, just as he was able to bring in the East African side in the Wakandan culture. And also, um, they finally point out what real life civilization the Wakandan language is inspired by. It is inspired by the Southern African um, language of Hoja, which is a language Xosa in uh, in the southern part of Africa. You know what I mean? Because as they're having the subtitles, they're showing, well, what do they speak mean? So the Wakandan words, I initially thought maybe they were Amharic, like the Navi language in Avatar, or they were um, Swahili words, but no, they're uh, they are Hoja words. Of course, we talked about it. The Dahomey civilization is what inspired the warrior women, all that stuff. A lot of it is inspired by real life culture, in both the African context and the American Indian slash Latino slash indigenous um, representation. But I just so I enjoyed that part of it. And one thing I didn't like, why did Ramonda's character have to die? I mean, Chadwick Boseman's character already died, and putting Ramonda to die and putting him to die both is like a just pile on. Obviously, Angela Bassett is still alive in real life, so just keep the Ramonda character alive. I feel like there is an original script out there in which her death was the symbolism of Shuri's growth as a character, because unlike, say, Rey in Star Wars, um, uh, Shuri's character does show growth and is not just a Mary Sue. Um, yeah, guys, if Ramonda's character actually um, passes away in the comic books, and that was something that was needed, then I understood why they stuck to the orthodoxy of that. But if not, then why does it happen? Also, is Raymunda Storm, and if she is, how come uh, in Wakanda she doesn't have any powers? You know what I mean? She doesn't control the weather or anything of the sort. Like, there's no reference to her being in X-Men. It's like X-Men exists as a parallel universe. So uh, that's what I want to know. Is she Storm? Because uh, I'm like T'Jala. Uh, I told Lisa, I'm like, T'Jala is married to Storm, right? And she's like, no, T'Jala ain't married to Storm. Storm is T'Jala's mother. And I'm like, well, how come Angela Bassett's character don't display no powers? How come she don't control the weather? How come she ain't doing the things that we know from the X-Men comics that Storm is capable of? You know what I mean? It was just confusing. Very confusing, very perplexing, you know, in regards to that. So if somebody, another thing we need help with, if somebody could elaborate on that and explain, maybe in Wakanda she can't use her powers, maybe because it's the vibranium world. I mean, the world with um, vibranium, it ain't possible. You know what I mean? Maybe she can only do that in the regular world outside of Wakanda. Um, Maybe that's it. One thing I noticed that was yeah, the comic book geeks. One thing I noticed that was different with this one versus the other one, that they showed up in other African countries like Mali, and they built laboratories. So they were actually using their um their capabilities, their vibranium capabilities, to help out the rest of Africa. So they kind of took on Killmonger's advice in a sense, in a way. You know what I mean? They did expand in a way, but I'm not gonna give away every single detail. But that's what I really want to know about. Why ain't Storm able to use her powers, or there's no reference to her previous life? And Riri Williams, the character, is gonna have um a show on Disney Plus centered around her, kind of like um, uh, the Boba Fett show on in Star Wars, with the Mandalorian will have her own show, which is going to be a spinoff, and she's going to be working with Tony Stark, the Iron Man. Her suit is kind of Iron Man ish. You know, it seemed out of place in a movie like Black Panther in a way, very out of place. Because it's like, why does she have to be there? She doesn't really add nothing to the story. Without her, the movie still would have been the same. What does she add to it? Nothing. Nothing. You know what I mean? It's a way to launch her show. I understand that, but why that in the middle of Iron Man? In the middle of Black Panther, why put the Iron Man shit in there? It doesn't make sense, and it seems out of place to me. But again, maybe she plays a bigger role, and maybe you guys know more than we do, because me and Lisa both, we were very confused by that. Like, what difference does she make? Maybe she shows, maybe she shows some growth as far as Shuri caring about other people and being sort of the big sister ish role, like she was the little sister to Jala, but now she's taking it on. And Lisa and I thought that it was a character named after Riri Rihanna, because Rihanna does two songs for the movie, but it wasn't. It's one of the established characters, in it. And also, another thing I want, yeah, you know what? Lisa saying she thought she was gonna be the Black Panther, and um, you know, that's absolutely right. That would have made more sense. because that would have gave her a purpose, and that would have really put the whole Killmonger thing of Africans versus African Americans, which was a subtext of the original, into full swing. Because here she is, she ain't Wakandan at all. He was Wakandan but raised in America. She ain't Wakandan at all. So she becomes the Black Panther. It's like really accepting his philosophy of Pan Africanism versus, you know, a Wakandan nationalism if she becomes the Black Panther. So that would have made a lot of sense, but that didn't happen. Shuri became the Black Panther. And for even though it's called the Black Panther, for most of the movie, there ain't no Black Panther at all. You know, they don't use the suit until the very end. But this is the introduction of her, the actress, and the introduction of Namor. So, and there is a twist, another twist regarding Neymar's mother that I'm not going to give away that I picked up on. Um, you know, that if you guys seen it in the comment section, comment below about it, and if I'm correct. I think, yeah, the movie was very woman driven, which I know is going to cause some controversy too, because it's a feminine. It's going to be perceived like, again, the woman king, very feminine, feminist oriented, but the twist ending that we're not going to talk about satisfies all of y'all. Let's just put it that way. All of you that are complaining that the Black Panther should be a man, even though in the comments in the comic books, this I do know, there is a Black Panther woman. You know what I mean. But y'all saying, oh well, they should have got another T'Challa and recast somebody else after Chadwick Boseman died. How you gonna do that? How you gonna really do some shit like that? This is his character. This is the character associated with him. You know what I mean? People didn't like when somebody else besides Robert Englund became Freddy Krueger. People didn't like it when uh, Will Smith became the genie in Aladdin. So why make somebody else the Black Panther? Y'all were bugging when it came to that. You know what I mean? Uh, no, no. You know what I mean? Uh, um, that would have been a stupid idea. That would have been dumb. Making Killmonger the Black Panther. People didn't even like. People didn't even like when Killmonger was on the throne in the fucking first movie. So, uh, I know there were people at the time in 2018 that liked the Killmonger character, that sympathized with his political position, that felt like he was in the right. He was, um, against the colonizers and stuff, and he was in the right. And even Shuri, to a certain extent, in this movie, agrees with his approach. You know what I mean? But unfortunately, uh, unfortunately or fortunately, depending on on the viewer's political persuasion, that's not what Stan Lee wrote. That's not what he envisioned. He envisioned the Black Panther suit being passed on to one of the family members of Wakandan and T'Challa's sister. Uh, Daniel Kaluuya. Yeah, I told you his name was Daniel. So you were saying it was David. Um, he wasn't in it because he's doing the movie Nope with Jordan Peele, and his absence is never explained, which is weird. You know what I mean? Because like he's there one minute, he's not there the next. But for you guys out there that want a little eye candy, I gotta say that even though I've seen a lot of Lupita's movies and I've known about it since 12 Years a Slave, and she is touted as one of the most beautiful women of all time in the history of Hollywood, I never really noticed her the way that I noticed her in this one. You know what I mean? I was like, damn, Lupita is looking hella good in this movie. And as far as from an eye candy perspective for heterosexual men and um, gay women, people that like women, you know, she's killing it uh, in in this movie. You know what I mean? She is definitely fine. You know what I mean? She done she done captured my eye in this. And uh, one thing I like too, that's a minor detail that I picked up on that I found enjoyable, was that they mentioned when they mentioned Haiti, they actually pronounced Haiti the way that Haitian people pronounce it. You know what I mean? That's how much detail they went into the cultural sensitivity in this movie. They pronounced the name Haiti as Haiti, which is grown up around a lot of Haitian people and having Haitian matrons and Haitian friends in Brooklyn, the capital of, besides Miami, Florida, the capital of Haitian America here in Brooklyn. I know that that's how they do pronounce it. And I'm like, in no other American production or things that Americans have done about Haiti, even historical documentaries, do they ever even get the pronunciation correct ever, except in this one. So props to them for that. Um, you know, uh, they show a lot of them. Yeah, the that was an besides the Hispanic complaint, another complaint about it because people, excuse me, always gonna find shit to bitch about. The two things they bitched about was there were no Hispanics in the first one, and there were no LGBT representation because they feel like they gotta have that in every movie, even stuff that doesn't pertain to that. So what Disney did was they do what they always did. They did what they did in the Star Wars prequels, was they snuck it in where one woman kiss another woman on the head and she tells her she loves her. They didn't want to make it a big deal because there are certain people, certain elements within the core audience of the black community. Now I don't want to say, come out and say, oh, all this heterosexual black community is homophobic or anything like that. But there are certain elements within the black core fan base that ain't gonna be cool with a main LGBTQ character. You know what I mean? They ain't gonna be cool with that because they felt a lot of them people like Boyce Watkins that did the review of the Woman King felt that the Woman King, and I felt it too. It was undergirded um, in the relationship between the two characters in the Woman King, a gay relationship. So they're walking a fine line as far as like who they wanted to offend and who they didn't want to offend, and they didn't want to offend the LGBT community, but at the same time they didn't want to be seen as promoting LG the LGBT agenda or whatever in a Hollywood movie because they knew they would have got backlash from the core audience that's actually caring about and paying to see this film. Uh, you know what I'm saying? So they managed to put it in, but snuck it in, and if you blinked, you missed it. It was one scene where a woman kissed another woman on the head and tells her she loves it, and that was it. That was that's your LGBT representation in the movie, and that's pretty much all you're probably gonna get, unless they make a part 3 and they do what they did with the Hispanic characters and they bend to the will of them and they make like a main LGBT character, or they make Riri Williams gay or Shuri gay or whatever. And I don't feel like they're going to do that because, again, the core audience that loves it, that is really going hard in the paint for it and loving this movie and really putting their dollars to it. Yeah, the Marvel geeks are of all races, but really putting the Marvel, really putting the money towards it and really shelling out to see this movie is not gonna be cool with LGBT shit rammed down people's throat, and they know that the Hollywood producers, and they ain't gonna try it. You know what I mean? I don't feel not in no big way. They'll do enough to shut the LGBT complainers up, you know, but they ain't gonna do a whole character of LGBT shit. You know what I mean? They're gonna nah, you know, that ain't going down. So if you're looking for like, because the test is Empire. They tried it in black media with Empire to push a heavily LGBT agenda, and people hate it. A lot of people, not all, but a lot of people hated Jussie Smollett's uh, character's constant pushing of the LGBT is LGBTism down other people's throats on Empire. So they've learned their lesson with pushing this in majority black media that people don't like. You know what I mean? So they'll do just enough to shut people up, but not too much to alienate uh, their core fan base. Um, yeah, Lisa's saying, and there was a fight scene between Anar and Shuri. It wasn't as disturbing as the Woman King fighting. Yeah, um, I know, and this is gonna offend a lot of. Well, I don't really have women viewers other than Lisa and my daughter, really. Anyway, most of my viewership is male, but if um, if women do come across this, I don't want to seem like I'm saying that I'm against women empowerment, but something to me is never going to seem right about women in action movies getting beaten up by men. You know, I know they're fantasy movies and they're supposed to be, um, have superpowers or whatever. And in the case of the Woman King, they're not even a fantasy movie. It's she didn't have no powers. You know what I mean? She was just a trained warrior. And let's face it, in real life, a man of that size would have destroyed any woman, despite in hand-to-hand combat. But something about it, about a man punching and stabbing and throwing around a female, even in a fantasy context like this, is never going to sit right with me personally. You know, because to me, even though it's fantasy, it's opening a door that makes it okay uh, for domestic violence. And in my inner feelings, politics and fake pandering aside, guys, on as they say, on some real shit, I don't feel that's okay. You know what I mean? That's not something that we should promote. You know what I mean? Have a female character fight another female character. You know, if you want to show that kind of stuff. But having a male character manhandling a woman character in any sort of movie or even in any sort of fantasy context, even uh, you know, in movies like this, fantasy movies, is never okay, guys, and it opens the door to something that is very sinister and a very huge problem in our real world, which is domestic violence against women by men. And I feel like you may think it's stupid, but people will point to shit like this and say, well, if it's okay in movies, then it's okay in real life, and it's never okay. You know, um, with the basis of morality that I've grown up with, that I believe in, that I was taught, as a child, that's not okay to do that for a man to do that to a woman, and it's not okay to be showing to young boys that are fans of this stuff that it's okay to do that to a woman, even in a fantasy context. So that will never, stuff like that will never sit right with me ever. You know what I mean? If you want to, whether it's Star Wars, whether it's this, whether it's the Woman King, intergender wrestling, not okay with me. I know it's all fantasy, it's all play, as they say. But still, come on, that's not cool, man. You know what I mean? You want to show a woman being an ass kicker, show her uh, in like piloting a ship and beating up, male military that way through with weapons. The hand-to-hand combat, the way he manhandled her and stabbed her up, just cringy. What was better, this one or the original? The original was way better, Lisa. I feel like uh, this, like they had one in the beginning, and then because Chadwick Boseman died, they had to pivot, and you know, they were grasping at straws and what to do. And in the future, I think that will come out that when he died, they went with something else. And keep in mind, this had another guy writing it besides Ryan Coogler, so it was two people's vision. And whenever it's two people's vision, you know, too many hands in the pot messes up the food. So whenever it's more than one person's vision, as saw like with the Star Wars prequels, it never goes over well. As it would if it was one person's vision, for example. You know what I mean? So, um, and because of what happened, yeah, yeah. Um, Hold on, Lisa. I'm looking up the other guy. Uh, Joe Robert Cole is the name of the other guy. Yeah, Lisa, you got to before me. Joe Robert Cole. Uh, and, you know, two or more people, of course, you know, it's two different people's vision, two different people's opinion, and maybe one wrote half and one wrote the other. And the writing seemed like it was a little bit of a mess, kind of like two different narratives, and they kind of made it gel together in a way. Uh, so that's what made it less impactful than the original. And again, um, I mean, they couldn't control what happened to Chadwick Boseman. Unfortunately, he died in real life. So what are you gonna do? But uh, those circumstances made it more so about his real life death than anything that had to do with the movie. So um, it just became a tribute to Chadwick. You know what I mean? Most of it, and the other stuff that was going on was just background stuff, you know, and but and sneak this in Avatar because Avatar: The Way of Water is coming out next month, and I feel like these were kind of this was like kind of getting an Avatar because they were water people and they were blue, and it's like okay, we're coming out before y'all, and we're gonna show you how our people, the Wakandans, dominate the freaking Avatar people, and that was most of it. But oh, he did okay. He wrote the first one, so okay, yeah, I'm wrong then. Uh, but I think he had more. It doesn't say, but I think he had more input in this one, or maybe it was just the events that happened. You know, with Chadwick dying. You know, where they couldn't control it, and that when that happens, you know, and it rarely does that somebody. And they didn't have. One thing I said to Lisa, they didn't have no stock footage of Chadwick, you know, that they could have used. Um, and I feel like the scene with Michael B. Jordan where he's sitting on a chair, spoiler alert, was supposed to be Chadwick, but since they couldn't use him, maybe that's why they made Ramonda die because she has to meet with an ancestor in the way that Chadwick met with the father in the first one. So because she has to meet with an ancestor and they didn't have no stock footage of him like they have of say uh, Carrie Fisher in Rise of Skywalker, where they used her stock footage that she had already recorded in the scenes with Ray. They didn't have none of that with Chadwick. All the flashbacks that they have of him when she's thinking about him is all from the first movie. So because they didn't have none of that, they couldn't use him as the chair scene as they would have wanted to. So they had to make another character die to stand in his place. But if that's the case, then why have Michael B. Jordan come in at all? You know what I mean? His cameo is completely worthless. Like they wasted him. Then, you know, but the events around his death, the death. I see again. I don't know, Lisa, because I know that Neymar is a real character in the comic book, so I don't know if he's actually blue or his parents' people are actually blue in uh, the original. It could have been the other way around. Stan Lee could have wrote this shit, and you know to, James Cameron claims that he wrote Avatar original, you know, originally out of his own mind, but he did one of those things that George Lucas did for the original Star Wars, where he just took other science fiction stuff that already existed and put it onto that. So it could have been that the Neymar people were already blue, and it was Avatar to copy from them, and they just put it out in theaters first. So it looks like they invented it, but they didn't. You know, it could have been something like that. You know what I mean? Like for example, um, you know, it looks like Paradise Alley is copying Rocky. The 1978 movie is copying Rocky, but really Paradise Alley was out before Rocky 2, or I mean 3. So Paradise Alley is not really copying Rocky. It's just that one came out first and the other came out, um, you know, later. Or um, you know, the one that inspired it came out first, and the one that the source material came out later. You know, or like you see a Lord of the Rings movie and you say, well, okay, that that's copying, you know, that's directly ripping off, say, uh, the stock characters in, say, King Arthur. But you know, King Arthur came out first, but the movie came out second. You know, so supposedly Avatar is original, but you never know. Everybody, everybody and their mama that was writing science fiction in the 70s, especially because Marvel was in their silver age in the 60s and they had such a huge impact on that world. Everybody in their mom was copying from Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. So I feel like Avatar copied from Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, and Avatar just came out before it. You know what I mean? So no, I don't feel, but I feel like it will be interpreted by the audience that it's getting at Avatar. Because look, Avatar is coming out next month, right after it, and a lot of people, including the usher, when we went to see it, said that they was not into it. They was not into Avatar. They didn't like the 2009 version, and me and Lisa was like, finally somebody said it. You know what I mean? Finally, because me and her agree on this too. I saw the original Avatar, and when I went to see it, uh, I thought it was the Avatar, The Last Airbender, because at that time, you know, I had a very young child, and you know, her and her friends would watch Avatar, The Last Airbender. So when we went to see it, I thought that was, you know, Aang and everything, fire, water, all those elements. Lisa didn't go with me at that time, but when I first saw it, that was what I thought. You know, it was going to be the Avatar from the show. And then when I watched it, I'm like, this Avatar shit is just like Pocahontas. This is just like Dances with Wolves. This is just like um, every other Native American movie where Europeans take over Native Americans. It's just with blue people, and it's in space, and it's just the special effects of it. The story wasn't really nothing to write home about. It's been told already. Been told in Enemy Mine. Been told in Dances with Wolves, Pocahontas, a lot of other movies. You know what I mean? So other than having disability representation with Jake Sully, Avatar wasn't on the right home about. And finally, this Usher yesterday uh, confirmed that me and Lisa weren't the only ones thinking that this shit is just boring. You know, Avatar was a boring. Avatar, the first one, was a boring ass movie that was overly hyped. You know what I mean? Because of uh, the special effects of the world, Pandora. You know, so I'm not looking. I'm not looking forward to seeing the Way of Water because again they waited too long for the sequel. 10 years. You mean to tell me you couldn't come up with something within 10 years to write as a sequel? You know, maybe they might surprise me, but I'm not paying to see it though. You know what I mean? Because after James Cameron, I don't even trust James Cameron with his own creations no more. Because uh, after uh, the last Terminator that uh, he came out with, Terminator Dark Fate, which I have a yeah. Um, you're gonna need you're going to need to take a bathroom break. People are going to need to take a freaking bathroom break before the movie starts, or put on the special underwear that the NASA astronauts wear. Because if you don't want to miss any part of it, if y'all guys don't want to miss any part of it out there uh, of the Avatar movie, it's 3 hours. But maybe you want to catch a nap. You know what I mean? Whatever. Because even with this, Uh, I call Lisa dozing off. I dozed off for a while too, like with two or three scenes, especially when it was dialogue heavy. So I can't imagine. uh, Avatar, what it's going to be like. It was boring to begin with, so imagine a 3 hour extended version. Um, so yeah, I'm gonna skip that. And at least these ones were better drawn than the Avatar aliens, the Navi. But let me know in the comment section if y'all think this was inspired by Avatar and if y'all gonna go spend 3 hours seeing Avatar or not. Maybe you're just gonna wait for it to be streamed. But yeah, I don't even trust James Cameron with his own creation because after Terminator Dark Fate, it's like you wrote the original Terminator and you couldn't even come with a worthy sequel then. But who's gonna trust you with Avatar? Anyway, guys, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you, Lisa, for contributing. And Wakanda forever. And remember, tell us why. Um, explain to us the mythology, the lore. Tell us what T'Challa came down sick with, according to the comics. Stuff that we missed, and also, does Raymunda die, and how is she Storm if she can't use her powers in Wakanda? And don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. Love you guys. Peace. Wakanda forever.